I am she who sits between the columns with my foot on the moon. Secrets, mystery, the future as yet unrevealed, silence, tenacity, wisdom, science. I am your host, Naomi, and this is Mosaic in Progress. Today we are talking about the High Priestess, the tarot card from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and the balance between light and dark. My now husband started buying me things, t-shirts and coffee mugs and keychains and such as that, with the High Priestess tarot card on them. The High Priestess tarot card, I read the description from the booklet included with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck at the beginning of this episode. But it also represents either the reader, if the reader is female, or the female that the reader is interested in if the reader is male. And the High Priestess represents a lot, but one of the primary things that she represents is being fully in your power. And the way that is represented is that she is fully seated in the middle of two columns, one dark and one light, and that represents the balance of light and dark, the balance of grief and joy, of shadow and apparent self. And she has her foot on the moon, and she wears a crown of a triple moon, and she is surrounded by pomegranates, which represent death and the underworld, but also they're plants that represent life. And she has the appearance of someone who would serve in a temple. Her garb is that of a priestess, and she holds in her hands the Torah. She is the ultimate representation of feminine power. And that's not what we're focusing on with this episode today, though. It is the balance of light and dark. When my husband first started buying me High Priestess memorabilia, we'll call it, when we were dating, the first one that he ever gave me, a t-shirt, he said, "It's to remind you to stay between the columns, to strike that balance between light and dark." I have a very caring witch friend who frequently tells me that he worries that I embrace my darkness too much, and I thought that was very silly, honestly, until last night. And I had a bit of an epiphany that inspired this episode. It is very hard for people who have been through trauma to not continue leading a traumatic life. And you would think it would be easy. You would think that the first thing we'd want to do is get away from the drama and the pain and the abuse and the toxicity and the chaos. But especially if it's what you were raised in, we don't really know how to not. Our brains adapted to be able to survive in that traumatic environment, and that's what it got used to. That's what it thinks is normal. And so when there's not chaos, and there's not all the trauma, we're going, well, when is it coming? And it becomes somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy. We create our own drama because we don't know how to exist without chaos. So we pick fights that don't need to happen. And we sabotage relationships, and we create so many problems for ourselves because we don't know just how to just be happy and peaceful and normal, because we never experienced it. And for us, our brains go, well, this is just the calm before the storm. Get ready for it. Something's coming. And when something doesn't come, we just create it ourselves. And I realized last night that I have been reveling in the darkness. That's one of the things when you start doing shadow work, particularly if you are of an esoteric or occult mindset and belief system and practice, is that once you delve into the shadow, once you dive into the darkness, it is intoxicating because it is powerful, and it's so much more powerful than light work. And you get intoxicated by the power that you find in the darkness. And it becomes so much more than just, I'm going to face my shadow, I'm going to learn to love my shadow. It's like, I've been trying to live in the light all this time and ignore my shadow, and this is where my power was. And it becomes this kind of comforting way of existence where you're not just facing your shadow to heal and accept. You just set up camp there and you live there. And often without even realizing it, I've thought of myself for a long time as a gray witch, someone who embraces the light and dark, but I think that was kind of dishonest of me, not intentionally so, but I certainly have not been embracing the light. And it was kind of a shocking realization for me. It's so much harder to be happy after trauma than people think it would be. You would think it would be an easy thing to be able to be like, oh yeah, finally, I'm not getting beaten every day. This is great. But it's not. Because especially if you've been living with a narcissistic abuser, it's a cycle. It's not constant beating and there's no good points. It's love bombing and abuse and more love bombing and more abuse and love bombing and abuse and love bombing and abuse and love bombing and abuse. And so a healthy, happy relationship feels like love bombing. And you're just waiting for the abuse. And that anticipation, that just anxiety of waiting turns into your own negative cycle that you create for yourself. Generally unintentionally. I don't think most of us want to be in that cycle. It just happens. So how do you find that balance? How do you accept that darkness? How do you love your shadow? While also allowing yourself to live in the light, to experience happiness and peace and joy. It's a delicate balance, and it's a hard one to strike. Early in my dating relationship with my now husband, one of my best friends kind of called me out because I was kind of creating a lot of drama that wasn't really there, and I was creating problems that weren't really there. I was just inventing things out of thin air to be upset about. And I was just so uncomfortable with this idea of like being in a committed relationship and like not having drama, and I couldn't even really like verbalize what I was feeling. It was just overwhelming to me that he hadn't cheated on me. He was still around. He still wanted to be with me. He hadn't abused me in any way. He wasn't lying or gaslighting me or giving me all these mixed signals. And for some reason, that was more upsetting to me than if he actually had. And I was just looking for any reason to run. And I was talking to my best friend, and she was like, maybe this is just finally your chance to be happy. And I was like, that couldn't be right. And she was like, no, really. Maybe this is your chance to finally be happy and to have something good after everything that you've been through. And that idea was so uncomfortable to me, I couldn't accept it. Because there's this internal narrative we get as abused children that we don't deserve happiness, we don't deserve love, we don't deserve peace, because that's the basic thing that your parents should give you, is a peaceful home and love and safety. And you don't get those as an abused child. You don't get those as a neglected child. And so your brain has to make sense around it. You're trying to figure out how to show up in the world, and you're completely dependent on your parents for everything. And so in order for it to make sense, for you to be able to have a relationship with these people who are completely failing you, you develop this internal narrative unconsciously that you don't deserve basic human needs. Your needs aren't important. They don't deserve to be met, because that's the basic thing that your parents should give you. And if they're not giving it to you, what's the reason for that? Your tiny brain that isn't even fully developed yet cannot comprehend the idea that anyone could be so selfish that they would deprive their child of the basic needs for safety and belonging and love. And so you decide, has to be something wrong with you. And it goes with you through the entire rest of your life. So you believe you don't deserve it from anyone, including yourself. This is why so many people who grew up in abusive homes have problems with addiction, have problems with self-harm, have problems with weight and eating disorders, and just basic not taking care of themselves, not meeting their own needs, whether it's being a people pleaser or neglecting their health or just fully harming themselves in some way. we learn that we are not deserving of basic human needs, and so we deny it to ourselves, and we accept that no one else is going to give it to us either. It's one of the hardest parts of the narrative to rewrite, to undo, is that idea that you're not worthy, because it's one of the first ideas that you learn. And you don't learn it in those words. You learn it as a concept before you even really know words. You learn it as a fucking infant. My mother was and still is a huge advocate for blanket training. I've mentioned it, I think, in the last several episodes, but if you've watched the Shiny Happy People documentary on Amazon, it talks about blanket training. You put an infant around 6 months old, is usually when this begins, on a blanket. You set something off of the blanket that they want, some toy or food or bottle, something that they want to get, and you tell them, a 6-month-old, listen to mama, don't get off the blanket. And as they crawl towards trying to get it, you tell them no, no, and you hit them until they learn what no means. And what they learn that no means is they're going to get hit. And so you're literally conditioning a freeze response. You're not actually teaching them what no means. You're conditioning a freeze response in an infant. My mother was also an advocate of cry it out, where if your baby is crying and they don't need their diaper changed and they don't need food, then you just leave them there to cry it out. And you leave an infant with no coping skills, who's completely relying on you to figure out a way to soothe themselves. And what they're wanting is connection. They're wanting you to help soothe them. What that teaches that child is that you are not there for them. They have to rely on themselves to meet their needs, because the person who should care for them is not going to do it. You can't be raised like this and have come out of it with like any kind of self-worth or ability to ask for help. And whether people will admit it or not, it's intentionally designed that way. So what I did is I delved deep into child psychology and child brain development and intentional parenting, conscious parenting, gentle parenting, and I began to reparent myself in my 30s. And it's a little ridiculous in a way, but it was helpful in a way, because I realized that there was a part of me that was still a little girl who never grew up, who never learned the basic developmental stages. Because if you never learn how to be safe, I think we talked about this in the second episode, if you never learn how to be safe, nothing else builds on that. So I had to teach myself that I was safe. I am safe. I keep me safe. I am grown up, adult me now. I will keep tiny you safe. You're not little girl anymore. You're an adult, and these people can't hurt you anymore. I won't let these people hurt you anymore. And it's just this like really intentional inner narrative of like telling myself that I'm safe and telling myself that I can't be hurt by these people anymore. And it felt really weird, and it still feels weird when I go through some of these exercises. But it was also very necessary. It was very necessary, and it was important. And if I hadn't done it, I wouldn't be where I am today. And not that I'm anywhere near done, but I'm not where I used to be. And I think that's the important thing, is embracing the journey. Because so many of us just want to be done. We just want to be at the finish line. We want it to be over. But the way we get there is the traveling. There's not a magic pill or a spell or a magic wand you can wave to make it all go away, make it all better. You have to go through the process. The process is the healing. The process is how you get there. And it sucks, and it's ugly, and it's messy, and it's difficult, but it's worth it. You are worth it. I was worth it. I am worth it. And anyone who has been through that is worth it. Because the lie that they fed you, that you are not worth being kept safe, you are not worth having your needs met, that you should be small and quiet and still, never express your needs, was a lie. And you deserve better. So yeah, go into your shadow, look it straight in the face and tell it you love it. And then turn back around and embrace the light, because you don't have to live there anymore. Growing up in an abusive home feels a lot like walking through a horror movie with your eyes closed. And you just don't want to open them. And facing your shadow feels like finally opening your eyes. And there's so much to take in, you have no idea how to even begin to process it, let alone get out of it. I think I may, in previous episodes, have alluded to the meditation that led to my exploration of shadow work without knowing that I was doing shadow work. And I'm going to share it a little more in depth than I think I ever have with anyone before. It was from a chakra healing kit that I got at a used bookstore, and there was a morning meditation, guided meditation, that took you from the ground up, from your root chakra through your crown, and then there was an evening meditation that took you from your crown down to your root, just going through your chakras. The first one was to kind of wake everything up. The last one was to kind of calm everything down and go to sleep. And it got to the third eye, and it said, look at your thoughts. Where did your thoughts go today? And I remember as I was like visualizing it, because I'm a very visual person, I could see my thoughts as if they were pictures suspended from the ceiling, just like an art gallery almost. They were just hanging in this room, and it was a dark room, and they were kind of dimly lit. And it said, now look between your thoughts. What do you see there? And was kind of weaving in between the pictures. I was looking, and I saw this monster. It was kind of alien-like, kind of demon-like. It was gray. It had snarling, kind of rat-like teeth that looked like they had blood in them, bloodshot eyes. It had tentacle-like hair. It was genderless. It looked evil. And it scared me so much to see it. I fully came out of the meditation. I was just immediately I wasn't asleep, but woke up. And my very first thought was, it's in my head, it's a part of me. If it's a part of me, I'm in control of it. And I tried to go back into the meditation. I couldn't calm down enough. So the next night, I did it again. I was like, I'm going to find this thing. I'm going to figure it out. And I tried to talk to it. Who are you? What are you? Why are you here? And it turned into a rat and ran away. And I started asking people for advice because it just rocked me to my core. And about half of the people said it was a demon. Don't try to engage it. Go get some holy water. Have someone do a cleansing. Do my own cleansing. All these different things. And about the other half of the people were just kind of, in a sense, dismissive of it. Just like, oh, things pop up in meditation sometimes. I think the more emphasis you put on it, the more big of an issue it's going to become. Just, you don't have to put your focus on it. And my intuition said, this is a thing that needs to be dealt with. And so I kept pursuing this, asking people, trying to find answers. And the answer just kind of came to me intuitively eventually, as I just kind of sat and waited for answers to come, that it was my trauma, that I had dissociated myself so much from my trauma that it had become this other being, that I had placed it outside of myself. Like, this isn't me. This is something else entirely. And it was just like an embodiment of my shadow self and everything that I wouldn't accept. And so I knew what I had to do. I had to find it and love it. And so I went into the meditation looking for it. And I finally found it when it got to the sacral chakra. And it was this visualization where you've got this peaceful place and there's water nearby. And it's like your quiet meditation space. And this is where you can be creative and everything. And I kind of viewed it as this kind of almost Rivendell area, Grecian temple in a way kind of area. And I was visualizing myself in that space, and I could see it hiding in the shadows. And I turned and faced it directly, and it hissed at me, and I could feel the fear in it, that it wasn't evil, it was afraid. And I said, I know you are me. I know you are a part of me. And I love you. And it sort of started becoming, in a way, less powerful. It just sort of started diminishing. And I said, I forgive you. It wasn't your fault. I love you. And I just kept saying these things to it over and over again. I forgive you. It wasn't your fault. I love you. I know you're me. I love you. I accept you. I forgive you. And it just got smaller and smaller and smaller until it disappeared. And I felt such a huge sense of relief. And it's a really weird exercise, and things that are unconscious often require really weird ways of dealing with them. But it was like a huge weight had lifted off my shoulders, because I was waiting for someone else to tell me it wasn't my fault. But I needed to tell myself that. And this is a big part of the healing and a big part of how we come to accept the light and live in that and come out of the darkness, is we have to give ourselves what we've been waiting for from everyone else. We needed our parents to give us safety. They didn't, so we decided we didn't deserve it. You have to give yourself safety. We needed our parents to give us love. They didn't. We didn't think we deserved it. We hoped someone else would. We were just waiting for someone to tell us that we were worthy of it, that we deserved it. We have to give ourselves love. We have to give ourselves the acceptance we didn't get. We have to allow ourselves to be fully, authentically ourselves without criticism. It doesn't matter what anyone else did to us or is doing. We give ourselves what we need, and that is how we find our way back into the light. And it is not an easy journey, and it's not something that happens overnight, and it's not something that I've mastered in any way. It's something I have to continue to work on daily, but it's worth it, and you're worth it, and I hope you will continue to work on it with me and join me on the podcast next week as we both continue to work on our mosaic in progress. Please follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We're everywhere as Mosaic in Progress. If you have an idea for an episode, email it to me at mosaicinprogress@gmail.com. And I'll see you on the next episode.